press the record button now.
Hi everybody, and welcome to another session of the Backyard Peace Project weekly coaching, where we come in and we hear from members if they want to join, just to support and inspire and just be here to answer questions. This is where our experts join and they can coach people in real time on the call. And we're just here for that sense of belonging and connection and that deep level of support. So welcome. Hi guys, thank you so much for joining us. Everybody on this call today is a Backyard Peace Project ambassador, and so you can find them in the community, and they're all experts in their field, which is very, very exciting. So today, guys, we always go deep and meaningful on a Wednesday, and today's no exception. So today I wanted to just lean into the idea of us going into the world wearing armor. What that looks like, how that can manifest, how that can influence our decisions in our personal and professional lives, because it's something I've been sort of working through with my clients. I was on an accidentally inspiring podcast with one of our ambassadors this morning, Steph, and we were talking about how fashion can be an armor. So it's a really interesting concept for me about how we can present ourselves in the world, and how we present ourselves filtering into every area of our lives. Just a light, easygoing topic for a Wednesday morning. So anybody want to kick us off?
It's interesting that you said that, because it actually I literally yesterday wrote an article for my blog around the idea of unconscious acts that we do and things. So, and this all came from a piece of toast, right? Like, weirdly, I'm about to have a cup of laksa soup, and I went to cut my oval-shaped sourdough loaf, and normally I would cut it straight down the middle, right? And I'm like, that's actually not going to fit in my cup, but that's not how you cut toast, right? And I stood there poised over my toast going, can I cut it the way I need it versus the way I'm meant to cut it? And then I did.
Life on the edge in the Backyard Peace Project.
Seriously. But it had me thinking, I'm like, hold on, how many times in our lives do we do things because it's the way we're meant to do it? How many times do we default to what we know because it's safe and it protects us, it stops judgment, it means that we're not in the limelight, there's all of these things that it protects us from and creates an armor for, right? And I remember it caused me to remember back to a moment my husband had. He did a stint as a stay-at-home dad for a while, and I remember coming home from work one day and he said to me, this is not working. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, the kids keep wanting, like, they just keep asking for stuff. I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, well, they want bread for breakfast. I'm like, hold on, why is this a problem? Well, toast is a breakfast meal, not bread. And I said to him, okay, so what are you telling me? That because that you need to spend more electricity, take more time, there's no nutritional difference, but because toast is what you grew up with for breakfast and bread is only at lunch, you can't serve our children bread for breakfast. He's like, yeah, that's not how it is. I'm like, whoa, hold on. Right? But we all have these little, and that's a little silly thing, right? Cutting your toast or having bread or toast. But we all do things every day that are just that we've normalized that protect us from really thinking sometimes, is this right for me? Is this right for my kids? Does this serve me? Does this serve my family? Is this where I really want to go? And so sometimes I think our armor can be as inauspicious as a piece of toast, but it still protects us, and it's an unconscious act or way of being that we don't even think about anymore. It's just there. So that's what that kind of brought up for me.
And I don't think it is small, because our lives are built upon the habits that we do every day, right? And if we get into these unconscious habits, it's like Dr. Joe Dispenza will say, you're not going to make change unless you make change. And I really became very aware of that. And it's that comfortableness. And in our house with the neurodiversity, same with you, Philippa, you get into the habits to avoid meltdowns, to just have an easy life, to, you know, all of those things. But you do get sort of stuck in a rut of the way that you do things. And when I was listening to that very concept, I would sit at the same place at the table every time. And do you know how uncomfortable it was for me to sit at a different place at the table? It was ridiculous. Still in my house, I'm still in my kitchen, but for me to move to another place at the table was really uncomfortable. And I thought, wow, these aren't small things. These are the things that we build our lives on.
Yeah, 100%.
I love that you say that, because I started deliberately sitting on different spots around the table because I noticed how comfortable I had become, and this had to be my seat. And I love, like, where I instantly went to was very similar to what Pip said, you know, the whole idea of what does Armour actually mean? It instantly translates to keeping us safe, and all these little things. I watched a podcast. I'm a huge fan of the Diary of a CEO, and I watched a podcast where Steve Bartlett interviewed the godfather of AI. And one line really stuck with me where he said, you know, when I say to you fish and chips, you're not learning anything, because this is expected. This is where you go to when you hear fish and chips. It's a learned phrase. But if I say fish and cucumber, your brain stops and goes like, hold on, that doesn't match. That doesn't go, or does it? You know, and that's where the learning starts. And to me, the instant question I'm asking myself is, when we keep ourselves safe, are we keeping ourselves from growing? I just want to put that out there, because, you know, the whole idea of Armour to me translates to keeping myself safe. And most of you already know that, but I'm going to share it here for anybody listening to this. When Rob, my husband, passed away, one of the biggest things for me was, how do I keep myself safe? Because he was my knight in shining armor. You know, here we go, perfect for the topic. And with him, I always felt safe. No matter what I did, I was never scared with Rob. I felt so safe with him. When he passed and our boys were only 10 and 8, I needed to create safety in our house. I needed to create safety for our family. I became the protector, the provider. So for me, I actually never thought of it as Armour, because that to me was tied to Rob. But I thought of it as, how do I keep my family safe? And it was little things, again, the little things, you know, the pushing the bed in one corner so I could feel cradled in and safe, the making sure that the back door, the front door were locked, so I didn't have to think about that at nighttime when I'm laying in bed. Oh, did I lock the door? Could somebody walk in, you know? But I think, to me, I want to bring this back here into the round for you guys, how that lands with you, because for me, when I think of keeping myself safe, there is a nudge that goes like, is that keeping you from growing? You know, the sit on a different space on the table. Oh, how dare you?
I know.
How am I going to feel about that? You know, and I started doing it deliberately, so I don't get tied down by these things. I chuckle about it now. I had a bath mat that was on an angle, and a friend of mine came in that is very much wired like I am, and I could see how her foot sort of pushed us to be lined up. I'm like, I did that on purpose. I want to walk past this every day. And those little things, setting them up for me, because they make me chuckle. They make my pattern interrupt, and they help me be more, I don't know, more open to growth, more open to differences, more open to possibilities.
Change.
And it starts with those little things.
Change is scary. Like, even when it's good change is scary.
Can I link into that? And I want to give other people a chance to talk, but can I just link into that? You know, we talk about, and, you know, obviously my realm is parents, but we talk about how big that adjustment to being a parent is. And it struck me when you were talking, Marie, that one of the reasons why parenting can be so confronting is because all of a sudden the little things, the control, the safety, the armor, all of that stuff gets fully challenged, because there are other energies in that space, and there are all sorts of unknowns that all of a sudden impact that. And the structure, the having everything in order, like the bath mat, you know, straight, it's not all in your control anymore. And so it becomes that challenges every piece of armor and safety. So thank you for that piece, because that's actually really important for us to understand. I think that's why parenting can be so challenging.
And it really pushes you to surrender. I mean, I
It
remember
teaches
at
you
one point,
flexibility, hey?
I went round my house, and
Everybody's
the
struggling.
majority of my house is wooden floors, right? And I went round my house, and the kids went through a phase of sticking stickers everywhere, light switches, cupboards, and they were all over my floor, which makes the floor look dirty because it looks like, you know, you've got stuff all over the floor. And
No,
I
you're
was
getting
so,
this wrong. It makes it
my
look
life,
happy.
no, darling, because I went through with these phases of going, I really need to take those stickers off the floor. And then I didn't have time. And every time I saw them, I thought, I really need to take the stickers off the floor. And then it morphed into a surrender of, oh my God, my house is a piece of art. I'm such a good mom. And I just sort of left it at that. And the stickers stayed there forever because I just didn't have time to do it. So I was like, just embrace it. Like Philippa said, you know, there's things that you start having. And it's interesting now that our kids are older, Philippa, because they're creating their own households and their own things. And I watch my daughter, and everything's got, I mean, she was messy as hell living here, but in her house, everything's got its place and we must wash everything in it. And I'm like, great, great, great. And then I think my husband and I were talking the other day and just saying how hilarious it's going to be when they start having children. I'm just going to laugh up my sleeve because I said I'm going to buy all of the toys battery operated and really loud. I'm going to go over there and create chaos. I'm going to go, you know, all the things they've done to our house.
Lego, Cathy.
Legos, absolutely, to inflict as much pain as possible.
Marbles.
And just, you know, because not everything's going to be in its place. And it's going to be really interesting watching her have to step into the embracing part because at the moment it's not there.
I'm already living this, except she brings the noisy toys back to my house and leaves them there.
That's hilarious.
So is this part of the cycle then? If we're looking into our armor, and I was like, from the start, I was thinking about where does it all begin? Is it from our parents and from their parents, from their parents, from their parents? And the armor comes from them just want to have some peace from the noisy kids or the noisy toys or the noisy something. So they create a system to go, let's put it somewhere else and then make it feel safe. And then you go and feel safe in that space. So the safety of ourselves feeling in our room and in our bodies and in our toys is not so much about ourselves, it's about our parents wanting some sanity. And we're just looping that same back into our kids and then to the next lot of generation and the next generation. So we think we're doing all these wonderful things to keep ourselves sane, but it's actually to keep the peace within the family system. And it's been going on for eons. So it's from our ancestors that we continue our lineage of safety through systems and belief systems.
Yeah.
And then when you challenge them and you go, is it actually true? And you're like, well, it's actually not that scary and I can do it anyway. But then ingrained is like, you must cook your meal, your grandmother's pie, the way that she made it because she had a smaller tin than you did, but you still make the pie that small. There's no real reason for it.
Yeah.
So it's like, how much of it are we putting on and living in this cycle? We think we're evolving as humans, but we're just recycling our history and belief system.
Like being hypnotized.
And when do we change that? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, linking back to what Marie said was, I know that raising our kids, I hadn't fully appreciated my facilitation of a calm, steady house with routine and rules and all of the things to try and counteract the potential chaos was stopping my kids from growing. Because there was one time when one of my kids came home, and they came home about the same time from the gym every time, and the bathroom was occupied by another one of my kids who was having a very long bath, which is one of their traits. And the kid that came home flipped because the bathroom wasn't free when on their slot, the one they wanted it to be free. And it really occurred to me that by facilitating the routine that kept him feeling secure and safe, I was actually preventing him from growing because he wasn't able to adapt to a new situation as simple as the bathroom's not free. And I had to say, there's a whole cupboard full of towels there, buddy, and I've got an ensuite you can use that you never normally ask permission for. It's fine. But that made me be more proactive in disrupting the status quo so that they had opportunities to adjust, and because otherwise that would have been really hard for them in the world.
That hits home for me. I think I am / was, because I'm in that transitioning period, I have to say, very much so on. I think we are so prone to making things easy for our kids and helping them and protecting them that we are actually not teaching them something. And maybe I shouldn't say we. I am. I'm just fully owning that. I feel that I've been so in this, in particular after Rob died, I was just overcompensating. I was fully aware of it and I was fully okay with it. And then there was this transition time back to our new normal where I'm like, okay, so I've been overcompensating, like with, huge amount of Christmas presents, because all of a sudden there was this emptiness that I tried to fill with presents, etc., etc. There were so many examples, and I was okay with them, and most of them were chosen quite deliberately. And if anybody had some issue with that, I would very much cut them off, because I'm like, you're not in our situation. You can keep your opinion. And I was very opinionated about that. And to me, that was keeping them safe.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, oh, am I actually keeping them safe, or am I stopping them from growing, from learning, from healing, from working through it? And it became a huge new journey for me. And I'm grateful for the realization. And the path was, and still sometimes is, really tough to come back to, okay, well, this is life, but you don't start there. You don't start there when your husband just died and the kids are 10 and 8. You're like, oh, that's tough, that's life, get on with it. You don't do that. You're very much in overprotective mode. You're very much in, how can I keep you safe? How can I now keep you safe? It is very different how I keep you safe to how Dad would have done it. I get that. I own that. And now, next step, healing, growth. How do you get there? How do you take that? So that really hit home when you said that. Teach them flexibility, because that's the first thing that I needed to learn. Becoming a parent, surrender, being flexible, not being able to do things exactly like they need to all be lined up. And, that was how my brain worked before. And then all of a sudden kids come along and nothing's lined up. Nothing is lined up. And there are
and it might be one day you go, yes, hooray, I've done it. And the next day they change the narrative. You're like, hang on a minute. Exactly. I just got used to what it was. Karen, what were you going to say on the subject?
So I probably come from different experience. I love change. I love and in all honesty, there have been some moments throughout my life where I need to, bunker down and, weather the storm and get through the pain. But for my kids, I've always given them, if you can imagine a horse track where you've got the 2 white fences, they can do whatever they like inside the track, and that will keep them safe within their boundaries. They go outside the track, the fences, and they'll have a discussion with me. But it's giving them that freedom to explore their own growth. I also think that growth is linked to self-efficacy. And when I was growing up, we were, competing in, fast sports. And there was this element of that you had to, to see yourself winning at the end, to then mentally, take you through the 100-kilometer race you're about to embark on. And so, yes, there was a lot of sport involvement that developed this inept self-efficacy that I think has been my steadfast support for me throughout my entire life. So it's got me through the moments where everything is just horrible, and be able to pick yourself up and move to the next chapter. Yeah, so I embrace change, and I actually get frustrated when everything is the same. So yeah, don't come to my house. You won't expect beautiful shelves like Cathy's got behind her. So yeah.
This is my sanctity, though. You should see the rest of the house.
What's
interesting? Sorry.
I'm actually like you, Karen. I love change. I thrive on it. But what came to me when you guys were talking just now was, if I think of Armour and I look for a picture of armor, I'm always going to go back to, you know, to the knight in shining armor with, and then when I think about what does that mean, it's very restrictive, it's very heavy. It's there's not a lot of movement. There's definitely no opportunity for growth. Like, don't change your body shape, which means it's not congruent with giving life, right? So to be pregnant, you have to change shape. So if I think about that and bring it back,
And you should wear an armor.
right?
That
So
wouldn't help with getting pregnant.
having armor is going to, for my money, stop growth, be restrictive, and allow no opportunity for new life growth.
Yeah.
So what it has to serve a really, 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 really good purpose in the moment for that piece of time to be something that we should consider putting on. And there are periods of time, as Marie said, where you need to be armored in order to cocoon or to kind of come into being yourself again and finding your new groove. But it should be deliberate, and it should be something considered, as opposed to doing it from an unconscious perspective. And like Paul said, you know, like the article I wrote was all about this idea that what are you passing on? What are you doing because it was always done? And that's just what's in there, as opposed to what are you choosing because it serves you? And we all make those choices from an unconscious position. And even those of us who sit at a different seat every time just for fun, and mostly to make everybody else uncomfortable as well.
Chaos.
So that you're sitting in their seat, right? And they have to move then. Like, that's me. I'm the one who's pushing people out, going, change, right? Like, but, you know, we need to be, to kind of, I guess, be thinking about what is just automatic, as well as what, you know, even when you're thinking about conscious change, what's just automatic.
But on that analogy, Philippa, the knights in the old ages, they would put their armor on and then take it off.
Yeah.
So it was purpose-driven armor, not which is about this conscious, you know, I'm going through a divorce, right, or my husband's passed away. I need the armor. I need to protect. But at what point do you go, I don't need the armor anymore. The jostling or whatever they do is finished. The games are over. Moving into the next stage. You know, it's very much about taking a tool and using it to protect you psychologically in a particular stage of your life. But then having the courage to go, I'm fine. Family's fine. We can move through this, and I need less armor. I only need, you know, I don't know, whatever they had, a crown or something.
I love that very much, because it also makes me think of what you said at the very beginning of our chat here today, Cathy, when you had the podcast with Steph and you talk about fashion. It's the same thing, you know, like when we put on something really fashionable, something for, let's say I do a keynote speech and I walk out on stage, I would definitely dress up a lot more than for other occasions, depending on who you speak to. You always sort of gauge it by the audience as well. Same thing here. I'm not going to rock up and sit here in my pajamas when I come for a chat with you guys, you know. So we sort of choose what we wear. We're not going to tell anyone, but we sort of choose what we wear depending on who we talk to, you know. And the same thing happens, like what you just said, Karen. When we come off stage, we go home. We're not going to go to bed with stilettos on and you know, all dressed up and makeup and all that. We're going to take makeup off, take our clothes off, and slip into something more comfortable. So I think it is very much that what I love about it is that deliberateness, is that a word? Even it is now, of choosing what we need for the occasion. Because that's, I think, what it comes down to. But it all comes back to me, that whole idea of, is armor stopping growth? That's my big question here.
And also there can be different areas. Sorry, Paul.
There you go.
I was just going to say very quickly that there can be different areas of your life where some places you have no armor and some places you have some armor. So it's in, you know, it depends on the circumstances and which area of your life you're focused on as well. Sorry, Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I guess I was going to expand on that. Like the thought of like when I was growing up, my armor wasn't an outside thing. Like sometimes the armor is the inside. It's like how you show up, how you react to different people. And I remember as a teenager, being an anxious teenager, wanted to fit in everywhere. So then I became the chameleon to link to different personalities, and I could shift myself and my state or my words or whatever. And I became really good at being able to connect to other people through mimicking what they did, because I changed my internal armor into, oh, now I talk science, or now I talk spiritual, or now I talk about sports. But within that space, I was able to change the hats. So that form was my armor, in a sense of being able to feel safe around anyone. Not that I knew it at the time, but that was just what I did. And then that became a better skill, as you grow, being able to connect to more people and I guess understand people better. And the armor became a skill rather than a safety project. And I think that's another key element. Like if we're talking to the people listening, it was like, it's not necessarily about how we show up in the family or how we show up in what we're doing. It's like, what are we doing in our life where we're holding ourselves back, that you might be able to transform the armor into a sword? It's a power tool rather than protective. And this is where I guess my evolution going through social anxiety as a kid to then wanting to present on stage and talk to people, that the armor was anxiety, the armor was fear, the armor was run, don't do it, don't do what you really, really want to do because you'll get hurt. And the safety trigger comes up in your body, amygdala switches on, and then you go run from that fire, off you go. And then over time started to transition that into, well, it's just energy in a different form. Like it took a while to understand that, because when you're in emotion, it's hard to get out of the think properly. Yet once I was able to transition that energy into a fuel or a tool, if we're talking about armories, it became my sword. When I jumped up on the stage, my hat changed, and the anxiety went away and turned into the ability to speak. It was quite interesting in that respect. Again, it's just, I love these conversations because they always give these timelines of thoughts, of journeys that we've been through, throughout my life, and I'm sure others as well. But when we bring it back to ourselves, and I'm not just talking about me, I'm just talking to people listening and us having this conversation, where in our life do we use our shields either restrictively or in a sense of power? And then also within that space of learning, you get to a space where you catch yourself still when you're restricting yourself from doing the thing you actually want to do. And that's I think that's where the learning and the change happens, from changing history and change the ancestry, is to learn as you grow, learn as you go, and then to shift as best you can, even if it's a little bit. That tiny little change in your direction can start to change the direction how you talk to your children, talk to your friends, talk to your family. And then that then evolves into the safety switch becoming the flexibility within challenge. And like parents saying, I love the change, I love the challenge, because at one point you've evolved into it going, I actually thrive when I'm in that space. It'll be a place where the challenge makes you stronger. And so the shield gets such a flexibility within your life that you can grow and do what you actually want to do. And I think that's where your armor becomes a molded and what's the word? Plasticity within the metal of your shield, because you create it. And I think that's where we bring the power back into the people. Yeah, you bring it back to yourself.
I love
you shift.
Oh, sorry, Paul. Yes. So I love the Vikings, and it's very the strength of the women in this show, in this series, is just incredible. and they use their shield to deflect. So I see armor not necessarily being all encompassing, but a tool to deflect from the more difficult things that are occurring in your life at any given time. You can put your shield down, and then when you need it, you can put it up, and that becomes your deflector, rather than trying to carry all this weight and, as Philippa explained, conforming to a robot, knight of the round table. So yeah, it's a fun conversation.
I loved, Paul, what you said there about the idea that we're not necessarily responding the same. And because I have perimenopause, the whole sentence I was going to say just switched off in my brain and went away, but it'll come back. But what I explain to clients often is that this idea, so when you're 5 and somebody in your home is maybe abusing you, maybe you're a 5-year-old child who's being abused, what are your options? You can't fight back, that's not safe. You can't leave, that's not safe. For most of us, our options would be to hide, be less, be removed from the situation in some way, to hide in our rooms or whatever the case might be. So, but we will find other ways to manage our safety. The problem exists when we're 35 or 45 or 55 and we're still responding from the same safety techniques. And so safety when you're 5 is very different to when you're 45, because you can leave, you can fight back, you can do different things. But because our unconscious has decided that that's the safe thing to do when we were 5, and it was, we're operating on that operating system. But I love an analogy, as you can probably already tell. It's like being an iPhone 16, but running Nokia 3110 software.
Love it.
That Nokia 3110 can only play the snake game. It's boring, right? And it's not going to get you the functionality that is within the hardware of an iPhone 16 if you've got the right software. And so the challenge is to be, first of all, conscious and aware that we're sometimes operating in our safety from the space of what was safe for us when we were 5 or 2 or 7 or whatever it might have been, but that may not be true for us anymore, and we need a software upgrade. But we need to choose that within ourselves, as opposed to just accept the status quo. And that's where the change comes in too, I think, and where the dropping of the armor or turning that into something that we can utilize, as opposed to just be burdened by.
I love your analogy.
Thank you.
I love that too. I want to share something here quickly, because it really taps into what Paul said about the energy, and that really hit home for me so many times in my life. But yesterday I had a really deep experience, and I'm going to share some of it for privacy reasons. I'm going to keep some to myself. But I walked into a situation when I was, I don't even remember the age, but probably around 7, where my younger brother got attacked. And all I knew how to respond to helplessness was to scream. That's all I had available to me at that age. I knew the guy who attacked him was stronger than me, taller than me. I had no chance. So all I had was screaming at him. And this particular situation has come up many, many times, because it caused really deep trauma for me, being confronted with that situation and wanting to keep my younger brother safe. And it came up yesterday in my beautiful breathwork session with Paul. And I had this vision of me stepping in between the attacker and my younger brother and looking at him and go, let go. Absolutely owning it. My energy was like, you could not mistaken my message. And he did. And he collapsed into my arms, and I held him, and he cried. And it was like all in my vision. Of course, that would have happened very, very differently at that age, because I didn't have the strength, I didn't have the energy. All I had available to me was screaming. And when I became a mom, I had to unlearn that behavior, that if I feel helpless, that I scream. And I did not realize that connection till I was a mom. And then I'm like, I don't want my kids to learn that. When you're helpless, you just scream. You find your words, you find your action, you grow your energy, you know, that is the sort of thing. And I feel like everything that we learn as a parent, I feel we have the responsibility to change that, to heal that, because this is what our kids learn from us. Our kids watch us and learn the behavior. So if they don't feel safe, or if they don't feel heard, or if they feel threatened, screaming can be a good option if you have nothing else available. But there are also other tools. So for me, there was a huge change in terms of there was something around my throat chakra, and I could step back into a situation where my younger brother was held against the throat. I'm like, oh my God, this is where that all came from, you know? So I feel whatever we have that doesn't feel healthy in terms of keeping us safe, it is up to us to learn it differently, to learn new tools, and then to teach our kids how to do that. Because as you said, Pip, you know, like we are still operating from that Nokia. I love that analogy. And the energy was so important for me to feel that, how I could step into myself to just use my words and not have to scream. You know, there was just that let go. And that was super powerful. So I felt like sharing that here.
Thank you. That was amazing.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul.
Just a question on that too, if you don't mind me sharing asking you a question on that. I remember at the end you mentioned about how you were feeling.
Oh yeah,
because
Paul was really gobsmacked about that. I know what you mean.
When we're going through emotional things, we feel like we either have to be highly emotional or low emotion. But yet when we transition and neutralize something, we just stand, and this is the testament to what you're saying there, is like you stand in your power. There is no I have to be heightened or I have to be lowered to fit into any mold. I'm just in that space of neutrality where that's where your power is, peaceful and present.
Yeah, because Paul was like, that's profound, that's huge. And I was like, yeah, right. But I felt so calm, I felt so neutral. And in my head, I was like, I should be sitting here going like, whoa, that was huge, you know? And I was like, oh yeah, I've got this now. You know, it was so, because in my vision, I had already transferred it. I was already that person. I had already stepped into that. And so, yeah, I came out of it and thinking that should be, and Paul's like, that was profound, you know? I'm like, yeah, it was. Moving on. So, yeah, that was quite interesting how it was so neutral at the end for me.
I think when we've got this level of awareness, it can be confronting. Because I remember when I was early parenting, so 20 years ago, I had some big opportunities come through to me. But at that time, Philippa will understand that my unconscious core belief was I don't want to be seen, I don't want to be heard. Like it wasn't safe for me to be seen or heard. And I had these big opportunities come through, which were pretty awesome. But I used my autoimmune diseases and the fact that I had small children as an excuse not to take the opportunities, and nobody questioned it because they were perfectly valid excuses. And I used them as strategic parts of my armor for a long time until I suddenly realized that's what I was doing. Because there's no reason that I couldn't have done those things. It's because I was not ready to be seen. I wasn't ready to be heard. I didn't feel worthy. But I was using these amazing excuses that nobody questioned because they were completely valid. And that was really confronting for me because it meant I had to go in and actually do the work and actually release a lot of stuff and have this awareness of this is how I'm keeping myself small. How do I counteract that?
Yeah. I want to add something to that, Cathy, because that, again, I'm like, oh my God, this is so true. That was actually also something that Paul and I talk about at the end of that, when I came out of that vision, out of the meditation, that I used that my entire life as an excuse, that I couldn't step up. I didn't want to be seen because every step up would mean hate from my siblings, because I'm the only one born into my family. My sisters are all adopted. So whenever I stood out or somebody said I'm beautiful or intelligent or whatever, I deflected. I didn't want to own that. I didn't want to allow that in because it meant that I stood out and then they hated me even more. because it's of course because you're the only one born into the family. So that became my excuse. That became my very good excuse of not having to step up, not having to be seen. And I didn't realize it for a really, really long time. And then when I came out of that vision yesterday, I was like, that I think that's what you said, Paul, that was so profound, having this realization of, whoa, so I was meant to step up and step in all along. And basically that sort of thing came up for me, speak for the weak or speak for those who don't have a voice. And that was me all along. I was meant to step out and protect or share a message all along. And it was my purpose all along, not just after Rob died, but from a very, very young age, I was born to do that. And that was the thing where Paul was like, that was profound. I'm like, yep, owning that, doing it, let's step up. So yeah, it is interesting, those excuses that become our armors or hold us back from stepping out, being seen, following our purpose.
Yeah. I guess with that, a good friend of mine, she's got a really, really cool quote, which she now uses, which she's created this, single mum life, but in entrepreneur, and she's like thrived through it, through all the challenges and all the fun and all the rest of it. But now it's almost like a motto for her. It's like, and it doesn't have to be about children. It could be about your experience. It could be about your life, your emotions, your health, whatever it may be. It's like, don't make it your excuse, make it your reason. Everything that we're doing in our life, we can either do one or the other. And like, she could have gone, oh, I'm a single mother and I have no work and this and that. She goes, it didn't use that as an excuse. I made it as my reason to thrive. And that goes with anything. Yeah, I thought that was quite powerful. I really love that.
Yeah, totally. And it's always a choice, isn't it? We're always daily presented with choices on how we're going to frame something, how we're going to integrate it, how we're going to deal with it. And I think that's a really good focus, because when you make something your reason, like it brings everything else into perspective, and you can do really scary things. Like, I've taken on huge institutions who have been prejudiced against my kids because of their diagnosis. And I didn't feel comfortable doing it. I was very vulnerable emotionally, but I knew it wasn't going to benefit us, but it was going to benefit the next family. And that was my reason, which is why I fought. But I could have easily crawled up into a ball, and that would have been, it was very touch and go which one I was going to do, because I felt very vulnerable. But I fought for the next family. And that was my focus, this imaginary family that were going to come through that institution next. And I didn't want them to be treated the way that we had been treated. And so I feel like that is a really brilliant focus, especially when you're scared, especially when you're feeling exhausted, especially when you're feeling vulnerable. What are my choices, and why are those my choices? Which why am I most attached to? Amazing. All right, so any wise words to finish off, ladies and gents?
I'm all wised out.
For those who, if people are interested in questioning some of that stuff, I actually just threw up a worksheet on my blog, the blog article I wrote, and there's a free worksheet in there if people want to just start, and we've called it the toast test.
Love it.
Right. Just to be able to guide you through questioning some of that stuff. Is this mine? Is this somebody else's? Is this working for me? Whatever. So I'm happy to throw it to you, Cathy, if you want to put it up in the group, but otherwise it's just free on my blog. But
yeah, we'll put a link in the group. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
I want it.
You want to do the toast
test?
I do want to. Yeah.
I love
I'm
it.
very interested now.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for another amazing session. I think these conversations need to happen, because we've only got one life. We need to live it to the fullest. And if we haven't had these things brought into our awareness, how can we progress? How can we grow? How can we step into the fullest version of ourselves? So really, really important. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And remember to come into the Backyard Peace Project, where all of these amazing people and more are there to support you. All of these experts are there. We've got amazing masterclasses. We've got sessions. We've got podcasts. We've got all the sorts of things to help you thrive. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
There you guys.
You stop the live stream. Exactly how you started it.
If I can find it. Oh,
The 3 dots at the bottom. You click on that and it says stop live stream.
End
Bottom
the call.
menu at the very right. There's the 3 dots where it says more. You click on that and then it comes up as stop live stream.
I'm gonna.
Or just end the meeting.
Yep.
That's awesome. That worked. Or
Lovely
we're still
to meet
live, actually. We
everybody.
all have to leave
Yeah.
because we're still live.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.